From outside Celtics Media Day, I'm Josue Pavon alongside Bobby Manning. Bobby, the Celtics just wrapped up Media Day ahead of the 2022-23 season. And, of course, everyone was asked about the Ime Udoka situation. Everyone was asked about the new interim coach and Joe Mazzulla. And in your opinion, what was the overall vibe from the beginning to end? Because I feel like from the very beginning, you felt that tension. Obviously, he was the first one to speak, and it sort of dwindled down. But it got a little different with certain players, though. How do you call it?
So I thought the most telling quote of the day was Jason Tatum saying that he found out about Ime Udoka's suspension on Twitter, just like everybody else. There was confusion, there was shock. Every player, more or less, looked a little rattled, and the general sentiment you got is that this was brand new to them. Marcus Smart talking about how Ime Udoka was coming out to LA to see him. They had conversations in recent weeks leading up to training camp, and then, just like all of us, Wednesday hits, you see that Woj report. Thursday, the suspension comes down. Friday, Celtics have a new interim head coach in Joe Mazzulla. So I could feel some of the confusion and maybe frustration in these players, Smart particularly, as well as Jaylen Brown, that they don't know more, that they can't learn more. They pretty much know what we know. Improper relationship, according to reports, and that's it. And the team really can't say too much else for privacy reasons, they say. So that's a concern heading into camp, I think.
We found out the same way you guys did. It seemed to be the ongoing theme throughout. I thought Marcus Smart, what he said was interesting, just in supporting Ime, saying how he's a great guy. And a lot of people were saying the same sort of sentiments, that it doesn't take away what he did for this team throughout the course of last season, the deep playoff run, all the way to the NBA Finals. But at the same time, kind of reserving judgment, right? Someone like Jaylen Brown, I thought, was sort of reserving judgment and saying that we don't know all the information, we don't know all the facts, but it doesn't mean that he's a bad guy / he's not a bad coach, obviously, because of what they did last year. But they're ready to move on with Joe Mazzulla as the new head coach.
And Joe Mazzulla talking here, we'll play this a little bit for you as well, talking about the two most important things he has to do now, which is instill trust. I think that was an important phrase that he used there, as well as to heal. Of course, everybody's grieving Udoka's loss in some way or another here. And, of course, there's some hurt that went on within the organization at a higher level, too, it appears here. So that's what Mazzulla is trying to do here, is bring this team together, move past some of the shock and frustration that Udoka's not here, and focus back in on basketball again. And, we'll get to him in one of our later videos, but it doesn't feel like he's trying to change too much. He's just trying to keep this ship moving forward in the direction Udoka was pushing it. What do you think the challenge is going to be for you, given that the players just kind of learned that Ime isn't going to be coaching this year over the last couple of days? Just what has kind of been the reactions they've had in conversation with you so far, and what's going to kind of be your message for the team?
I mean, the message is first to give people space and time, not just for the players, but for everybody. It's an unfortunate situation for everyone involved, and so you have to give people the time and space to feel and the time and space to heal. And so that's key. You can't rush anything. And, the great thing about this organization, the players that we have, and the season last year is we have a formula for what we know we need to do in order to get better every single day and get back to where we want to get to. And so as much as we can focus on that, we'll be in good shape.
And there's that clip of Joe Mazzulla. Yeah, I liked also how he talked about it's not about the way he wants to do things, but it's how the players are going to respond. It's how, what's best for the team. And Al Horford even took it a step further, right? He said, look, it's not going to boil down to wins and losses these first couple of months into the regular season. It's going to be more about how they play overall as a team. And at the end of the day, the wins and losses will work itself out.
Yeah, and that's going to be the most difficult part. I don't think there's huge basketball concerns with this team, even though Robert Williams is out and they lost Danilo Gallinari, and there's some questions about the rotations and everything else, backup center. Those are questions that I think we all assume this team would figure out, and they'd still be one of the best teams in the NBA. The biggest concern hanging into this team is what we've talked about this whole video. Do the players have faith in this process? Is this a distraction into the year? Do they feel like Mazzulla is an appropriate replacement for Udoka? There wasn't strong confidence today from my perspective that the players look at this and said, this was well done, well handled, and we're moving past it because it was well deserved. I think everyone's still questioning what went on here, and it's going to be hard not to. This team just flipped upside down in 1 week. Think of where they were 1 week ago with Rob's injury and everything else, and where they are now. And Rob's prognosis got even longer, and we'll talk about that in our next video. But this team, the stuff that happened this past week, you could just see it on their faces, right? These guys were in a bad way, it felt like.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about that. But first things first, or lastly, I should say, before we wrap up this video, this edition of the Garden Report is brought to you by our good folks at calm.com. Head over to calm.com/garden for 40% off a premium subscription when you go to calm.com/garden. We're also sponsored by our good friends at Athletic Greens. Head over to athleticgreens.com/garden for a year supply of vitamin D and 5 travel packs as well. Bobby, anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up?
I'm glad we were able to get these players today speaking their mind freely and question some things. Because, again, you heard some other players like Grant saying, you know, we think the organization handled this well, and he didn't really want to say that they found out on Twitter because it looks messy. It looks sloppy. It looks like things are kind of dysfunctional behind the scenes right now with this group, even if the standard that they're saying that it's privacy and that's what they're really trying to protect here is true. You would want the players to be a little more clued in than it appears they have been, right?
Yeah, a little bit, but in a perfect world, I mean, that could lead to other problems, even, problems that the Celtics just don't want to address, and of course, we'll talk more about that in our upcoming video from outside Celtics Media Day out in Canton. Plenty more. He's Bobby Manning. I am Josue Pavon. Stay tuned for more coverage.